Tensions across the Middle East are exploding in ways that feel almost surreal. What was initially framed as a calculated and decisive move by President Donald Trump has now spiraled into a regional firestorm, and the consequences are unfolding in real time. The decision to launch strikes against Iran was presented as necessary, urgent, and defensive. But as the days pass, it is becoming increasingly clear that the ripple effects are far larger and far more dangerous than what the American public was prepared for. The most alarming development is this. The United States government has issued urgent evacuation warnings for Americans across multiple Middle Eastern countries. Instead of announcing coordinated airlifts, military evacuations, or organized extraction plans, the message from the State Department has been stark and chilling. Depart now via commercial means due to serious safety risks. That is it. No detailed strategy, no promise of emergency support, no visible plan to secure Americans caught in an active war zone. This is happening while airports across the region are under threat. Iran has launched ballistic missile strikes targeting Israel and multiple Gulf nations. Air raid sirens have echoed through cities like Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, and explosions have been reported in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The United States Embassy in Riyadh was struck during an Iranian drone attack. Fortunately, early reports indicate there were no casualties, but the image of smoke rising from an American diplomatic compound is not something easily dismissed. In Kuwait, the military has confirmed barrages of Iranian missiles and drones moving through its airspace. Bahrain has sounded air raid sirens. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates are on high alert. American troops stationed across these countries are now in direct danger. Reports indicate that multiple United States service members have been killed, with others seriously wounded. The numbers are reportedly rising. And amid this escalating chaos, Americans on the ground are being told to find commercial flights and leave on their own. Let that sink in for a moment. At the same time that airspace is being threatened, at the same time embassies are under attack, and at the same time regional conflict is widening, the instruction to civilians is essentially, you are on your own. President Donald Trump spoke to News Nation about the situation and promised retaliation for the attack on the embassy in Riyadh and the deaths of American service members. He suggested that boots on the ground would not be necessary. When asked whether he was concerned about further attacks on United States facilities, his response was blunt. That is part of war. Whether people like it or not, that is the way it is. He also stated that more deaths and injuries are expected because that is part of war. It is an astonishing statement when viewed in the context of how this conflict began. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a press conference in which he was asked a simple but critical question: why was an immediate strike on Iran necessary? Reports had surfaced that mediation efforts through Oman were progressing. The Omani foreign minister had suggested there was a deal in principle for Iran to halt uranium enrichment, pending technical details from the International Atomic Energy Agency. So why move forward with military action at that moment? Rubio's answer stunned many observers. He stated that there was an imminent threat because intelligence indicated that Israel was planning to strike Iran. And if Israel struck Iran, Rubio said, Iran would likely retaliate against United States forces and interests. Therefore, the United States acted preemptively to strike Iran before Iran could strike American assets in response to an Israeli attack. Read that again carefully. The justification, according to Rubio, was not that Iran had attacked the United States. It was not that Iran had directly threatened an immediate strike. It was that Israel might attack Iran, and Iran might respond against the United States. So America chose to strike first. Rubio doubled down on this explanation. He emphasized that if the United States had waited for Iran to retaliate after being attacked by Israel, American casualties would have been higher. Therefore, acting proactively was framed as defensive. This reasoning has triggered fierce debate. Critics argue that if Israel was preparing an action that could ignite a regional conflict, diplomatic pressure could have been applied to delay or prevent that strike while negotiations were ongoing. Instead, the United States chose to move forward militarily, effectively joining and escalating the confrontation. House Speaker Mike Johnson echoed the administration's rationale. He described it as common sense. If Israel struck Iran and Iran responded against American forces, then acting first was prudent. The framing has been consistent across administration allies. Preemption prevented greater loss of life. Yet there is a deeper issue beneath this argument. What exactly is the objective? Vice President J.D. Vance attempted to draw distinctions between this conflict and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He stated that those wars suffered from mission creep and lacked clear objectives. He insisted that this time, the objective is defined: to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. However, messaging from various officials has appeared inconsistent. Initially, the focus was on uranium enrichment. Then, talk of regime change surfaced. Later, officials seemed to step back from that language. When asked whether the United States cares who runs Iran, Vance responded that ideally a friendly regime would be preferable, but ultimately the primary objective is preventing a nuclear bomb. This shifting narrative has fueled uncertainty, not just among critics but among military analysts as well. One particularly striking moment came from Major General Randy Manner, currently stranded in the United Arab Emirates. He noted that the mission appeared to be evolving in real time. What began as a focused objective seemed to expand into broader goals. He expressed concern about the lack of clarity and pointed out that the United Kingdom had arranged transport to extract British citizens, while Americans felt abandoned. He described embassy personnel as being in survival mode after significant budget reductions. The comparison is stark. While the United Kingdom organizes evacuations, Americans are advised to use commercial airlines amid active missile threats. Meanwhile, political rhetoric in the United States has intensified. On Fox News, commentators like Dana Perino argued that the situation would be worse under Vice President Kamala Harris. The conversation shifted quickly from geopolitical strategy to domestic political rivalry. The debate has become deeply partisan. President Trump has also taken to social media. In the midst of regional war, he posted about accepting an invitation to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, referring to himself as one of the greatest presidents in history. He criticized Democrats for opposing the strikes, claiming they would have demanded action had he not taken it. He reposted commentary about eradicating the so-called deep state more effectively than Richard Nixon. The contrast between social media messaging and unfolding events on the ground is jarring. There are now confirmed missile exchanges, drone strikes, embassy damage, rising casualty counts, and emergency warnings across the region. Global oil markets are reacting. Diplomatic channels are strained. Civilian travelers are scrambling for exit routes. And American service members remain stationed in areas where sirens are sounding daily. Iran's strategy appears to be one of calculated retaliation without triggering full-scale invasion. By targeting regional assets, airports, and symbolic sites such as embassies, Tehran signals capability while avoiding immediate ground confrontation. But that balance is fragile. Israel's role remains central. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has long warned of Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israel has historically acted independently when it perceives existential threats. The interplay between Israeli strategy and United States involvement is now under intense scrutiny. International actors are watching closely. Russia and China have issued statements condemning escalation. European Union officials have called for restraint. Energy markets are volatile. Insurance premiums for shipping through the Strait of Hormuz are reportedly rising. The global economy feels the tremors. At the heart of this crisis are human lives, soldiers stationed far from home, families watching news alerts in the middle of the night, American travelers unsure whether airports will remain operational, embassy staff working under emergency protocols. War rhetoric often reduces events to strategy and politics. But behind every statement about preemption and deterrence are individuals facing real danger. The administration maintains that decisive action prevented a larger catastrophe. Critics argue that diplomacy was undermined at a critical moment. Supporters claim strength deters aggression. Opponents warn of open-ended escalation. History shows how quickly regional conflicts can expand. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were both launched with defined objectives. Both evolved in unpredictable ways. Leaders often believe they can control the tempo and scale of engagement. Reality rarely cooperates. The coming days will determine whether this remains a contained confrontation or transforms into something far more expansive. Retaliation cycles can accelerate rapidly. Miscalculation is always possible. A single strike causing significant casualties could force decisions that leaders had hoped to avoid. For now, evacuation advisories stand, missile alerts continue. Political messaging competes with battlefield developments. The Middle East sits on a knife edge. And the question that hangs over everything is this: was this escalation inevitable, or was there still space for diplomacy? That is the debate now unfolding across television studios, military briefings, and kitchen tables alike. The stakes could not be higher.